armed. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us again for your current installment of School of Hard Thoughts podcast. I am doing the intro, and I'm butchering it because I am Green Kaywood. Next to me is Ace, Adrian.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Hard Thoughts podcast again. Again, coming to you from Famous Sam's at Golf Links and Kolb in Tucson, Arizona. 7129 East Golf Links Road. Best place in the world to watch sports. They got great food. They've got like a billion TVs. They're all in HD. Okay, I'm lying a little bit now. But I love you, Richard, so it's awesome.
We got a special guest with us today. We're a little crammed in if you're watching us on YouTube, which you need to be watching us on YouTube. We're all very gorgeous people, and we have somebody else in class today, don't we?
Yeah, Preston and I have been friends for
a
decade?
Probably
10 years? Yeah, at least 10 years. So, Preston Leftwich.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Thanks for having me.
So, we're just bringing a dude in. That's our friend. No, actually, he's a very interesting person. And before we get started, one of the things I did was
What'd you do?
Well, one of the things I did was not do.
Ah, Jesus.
So, there are questions that I have that I never asked you.
Yeah, sounds good.
And I have them, and we could have done them in prep.
That's good podcasting, though.
But that's not, if you do it in prep, then it's like, yes, this is the answer that we're going to go with. My written prepared statement.
It turns out better if you do it raw.
We're unscripted around here.
He likes to go raw.
Whoa!
No, I like it when it's all raw.
Well, Ed, I hope the kids are in bed.
And as always, the disclaimer that I always put out: if you work for my employer, if you are my employer, if you are my employer's client, and you're easily offended, stop listening, stop watching. This is my place to vent. This is explicit. Although we don't even really cut. We did when I was a czar, we barely cussed.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's because she's intelligent.
No, intelligent people cuss like fucking.
Oh yeah. Never mind.
Dropped a few in there, but I think with her, I was so busy listening to what she was saying so that I could answer or at least come back with something. And
try to keep up.
She was just like, blah, 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 Donald Trump's a dickhead, blah, blah, blah.
Well, she's not wrong.
Sorry, that is not a good imitation of you. You were awesome. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, and if she ever wants to come back on the podcast,
she'll be back.
But Preston is here today with us, and Preston, you got things to say, and you got tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where are you from?
Well, I am 28 years old. I'm originally from Mississippi.
Mississippi.
Yeah,
SEC?
Wow.
I came here in 95, I want to say. Been here ever since. Been in Tucson. I love Tucson. But yeah, I work as a respiratory therapist. And yeah.
How long have you been doing that?
Only about a little over a year now.
Right.
Yeah, not too
long. How did you get into the medical profession? What were you doing before that?
Well, it actually started out when Ben got me a transporting job at St. Joe's, and this was 2010, 2011, something like that. Yeah. And started working at the hospital, and it was just pretty much all medical from there. I then became a PCT, patient care tech, and then went to school and then became a respiratory therapist, and now I'm working on going for a physician's assistant, so...
Okay, so this is a prime example that millennials do know how to work. They're out there, and it's not all the clickbait you see on social media and news sites that you see about millennials. So you're 28. Good Lord. You've done more in 28 years than I have done in general. Just in general. And so kudos to you there. But
thank you.
Did you have an inkling for medical professions as you were growing up as a kid? Did you express interest in that growing up?
Honestly, no. I jumped around quite a bit to figure out that the medical field's where I want to be. I actually have 3 degrees. That's how much I jumped around. Because, I mean...
Well, you gotta list your bona fides.
Yeah, what degrees?
I was a sign language interpreter for a while. Second
Cool.
degree was general studies. I don't really count that. And then I have my respiratory therapy degree.
Okay. Very cool. General studies.
Yeah, which is basically
That's like
Studying generals.
it is basically like a high school
Custer.
diploma for college.
It's not a general. Do you want me to do the whole Last Samurai fucking speech? Because I'll do it.
Yes.
You know I can.
Because he's the only person that watched The Last Samurai.
Oh my god, that was horrible. You know how much I love Tom Cruise.
I do. He's a tiny little man, but
I can relate to that.
well, and I also prescribe to science fiction gods. Like, I believe in Time Lords, so who the hell am I to talk shit about Scientology?
That's true, you are a Whovian.
Yeah, I am. So, respiratory therapist in Arizona, is that a hard job?
Itself, no, I would say. It depends what level you work. I generally did floors, just giving basic breathing treatments, but the market is very weird because the thing about Tucson is it seems like everybody has COPD. Everybody has COPD.
Yeah,
Or working towards it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's also tied to the age segment
Age range,
of the
yeah.
population.
That's very true.
We are a very octogenarian kind of
Yeah, or at least
popular.
septuagenarian.
Yeah, exactly. We're old. We're
Yeah.
old here in Tucson. At what age okay, so you said you left Mississippi. Did you do you want to go back to Mississippi at all?
No.
Is there even anybody back there in Mississippi? Or?
Family-wise, no. Let's see, my mom lives here in town. Her family's in Oklahoma City. And then my dad lives in Houston. So I don't have any family back there. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to go back at all. I won't stay in Tucson forever, but I do like Tucson. But
Mosquitoes this big.
yeah, mosquitoes were the worst. You walk outside for 2 seconds, and then you have like 100 bites on your arm.
So what drew you to Tucson in the first place? Why Tucson?
My dad actually, he was in the Air Force, and he got transferred to Davis-Monthan.
There you go.
So
Oh, I got here too.
Yeah,
Not
so-
my dad, but my brother.
My mom, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that base just sucks people in from everywhere in the world.
it does, and
And that's how young people get here. Old people get here because they're like, oh, it's nice and cold and warm and dry.
Good for my arthritis.
I'm cold.
Yeah.
I'm so cold. It's like
It's
July.
75 degrees
No,
out.
look, I live with a 77-year-old who he knows.
yeah.
And she is always cold. It's like it's like 400 degrees in the house. The thermostat is on 80. My wife is losing her fucking mind because she's going through early menopause. So she's always hot.
Yeah.
And I'm stuck in the middle between.
You're stuck. You're living the full gamut
Oh,
of
God.
experiences
Yeah.
over here. Something
Although-
to look forward to, Preston.
Sounds like you need to invest in some Snuggies.
But the thing with me is I've lived with her for so long that I've kind of developed her biochemistry. Like, I get cold easy. Like when it's sick, like this, like 2 weeks ago when the weather did that small change.
When we actually had weather.
Yeah, when it did that small change and it was like 55 in the morning, I was like, fuck this.
Didn't you grow up?
And I was born in Pittsburgh.
I was about to say, ain't you
and
from
I lived
the right coast?
I lived into my 30s on the East Coast, and I left for the first time I came in Tucson was in 1996, and I left for 3 months because I hated Tucson, and I went back, and it happened to be like the beginning of winter. And it was like 50 degrees, and people were wearing shorts and like long sleeve t-shirts. And I was like, I need a fucking North Face jacket. and then I realized that I had lost my acclimation and I had to get out. So I lost my acclimation really quick. And now, after living with my mom for, forever, and that sounds really like douchish. But
We don't have basements in Arizona,
Yeah,
first of all,
exactly.
so you can't live in a basement.
always been equals.
If anything, it's an add-on to the double wide.
Right.
But anyways,
after living with her, and now that she's always cold all the time, it's kind of like I've adopted that. So poor Tracy is just screwed. She just hates both of us.
well, hey, baby, that's marriage. So, Preston, what is your favorite part of your job? And then a follow-up, what's the hardest part of your job?
I would
Favorite
say my favorite part of the job, I would say it's completely dependent upon who you're working with and how the patients are. And the hardest part of the job would be patient ratios. It depends.
Right.
It really depends on the day. So some days I hate my job, other days it's awesome.
So there's a dichotomy there, because we were talking about it earlier, where it's the job market for respiratory therapists is like ridiculously bad right now, and yet patient ratios are still high.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile that?
It's really hard to say. I mean, if you obviously go to higher population cities like Phoenix, I looked at job postings there the other day, and they're off the charts. It says there's like 100 plus jobs posted. You look down here, I think there was 15 to 20, something like that.
With like probably about 100 people competing for them.
Yeah, exactly. And plus, if you don't have much experience in the field, that kind of screws you. A lot of the jobs want like 3 to 4 years plus experience. I have one, but I mean, actually only 8 months of actual working. So.
Right.
Is Phoenix managed by a different company than Tucson when it comes to...
No, there's all kinds of different companies. I think that's one of the things, and again, television does this, and it's more scripted television does this. Mm-hmm. One of the things that people misunderstand about the medical field, the police field, and you always see...
Responders.
You always see the TV shows like, the grizzled detective comes to LA, they transferred from New York.
The mayor's on my ass.
You don't transfer because the police department in New York or Wilmington, Delaware, or Tucson, Arizona, or Bisbee.
They're different entities.
They're
Yep.
absolutely their own governments or own corporations. Yep. And it's the same thing with hospitals. It's like, I can't transfer from St. Joe's to TMC. Now I can transfer from St. Joe's to St. Mary's if I worked in there, because they're in the same network.
Yep.
But it's just like any place else. Like, it's, if you work for Sears, you can't go, Sears is closing, I'm going to transfer
to Dillard's.
Yeah, it just doesn't work like that.
What is a Dillard's? Hey, remember Mervyn's? I don't either. So it is
a jacket in Mervyn's.
it is a business though.
Yeah.
Okay, and the point of business is to make capital, to make money. Mm-hmm. Do you ever have issues with that? Like, is there ever instances where you'd rather provide this treatment over that treatment, but because of the insurance scale or something like that, you're kind of hemmed in? Like, what's your take on that?
It depends on a few factors, I would say. I mean, it goes from my scope of practice to what, they're trying to push, what drugs can, they can get more off of, mm-hmm. that can also gain for the hospital. It depends on the physician.
Right, like Singular is like out of control. My mom's on that, and it's like $10 million a month.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at TMC2 as well. Excuse me, not TMC2, but you look at TMC as well.
TMC2, that's awesome.
There's certain drugs that they just don't use, but it's because the hospital has a contract with that drug company.
Yeah, there always seems to be, and even physicians, individual physicians, you can tell it's like, I really want you to take this. I'm like, well, what about this other one? Like, oh no, that one sucks. Just take this, and then you find out that
exactly,
you get that Merck or GlaxoSmithKline or whatever, it's got their hand in that doctor's pocket.
Doctors have been trying to push on me Ritalin and Adderall since I was about your age, about 28. And I do have some tendencies that are ADD, but I think it's part of my personality.
Yeah, you're an asshole.
It's actually... School of Hard Thoughts. It's my best friend Ace. No, but it's actually helped me in my life. Having some of these, what some people would call a disorder or something like that. I actually consider it a benefit because I can keep a lot of plates spinning in the air. So, speaking of that, what is one thing that if you could change right now about the industry, about your job, what would it be?
It's really hard to say. I would have to say scope of practice. Sometimes
I wanted to get into that with you because one of the things that really I would benefit from it a lot when I worked at Joe's, and you probably remember this. You were transporting at the time, but I think you kind of remember what my work ethic and how crazy I was.
You were always running around in the ED. Yeah.
So it It is and has always been within the scope of practice for a respiratory therapist to intubate. You guys practice it, you train for it, and you know way more about the anatomy and physiology and the systems, and just the physical task of intubation than anybody except maybe a doctor who's been doing it for years.
Yeah.
And
intubation is
when you see people on breathing machines, that tube has to get in there, and it actually doesn't go in easy. Like it doesn't just like on ER they used to just kind of like slip it in the mouth and they're like, I'm in.
Not today.
No, it's a little teeny tiny hole on top of a big hole, and sometimes you can't even see that little teeny tiny hole.
And by the way, I knew what it was. I was just asking for our listeners. Is what people who don't know things say.
Get Google. It's on your phone.
Yeah, but if somebody
you're watching this, so you can't use your phone. Okay, never mind.
Somebody gets intubated, shit's going down, so it's really needed.
Yeah, so I've always had a sympathy for respiratory therapists because I don't know of anywhere that lets you guys intubate, and that's kind of like a waste of skill.
Well, it really depends, once again. You're right for the most part, but you go to some places and we're able to. Some places, though, they'll want like the charge RT to do it if need be.
Right.
But if you go to Banner, sometimes RT does it. TMC is very specific about who is allowed to. I know St. Joe's, like Carondelet, Tenet type hospitals, they have their guidelines, but I know a lot of people that shouldn't be intubating that are, so...
I know doctors that shouldn't be intubating that are intubating.
Yeah. And if you, like I was saying, Banner once again...
Can we name those?
No, I'm not going to name Chad Stadhunt.
Oh!
You go to Banner, it's
Shot
always
across
residents.
the bow.
Shots fired.
Yeah,
Go.
so... no, I was just saying that if you go to, like, Banner... It's always going to be residents. They get the chance. They always jump on it. Always jump on it.
Right,
so.
and it was funny. I have a friend. So when you're in medic class, it's kind of like respiratory therapist class. You do your clinical rotations, and when medics are in their clinical rotations, it's like we've got to get so many skills. So you get like 1 million IV starts. It's ridiculous. It's like after like your first few clinicals, you've actually got almost all the IV starts that you need for your entire program, and you like starting IVs. Everybody wants intubations, and like the worst place in the world to go for an intubation is Banner, which used to be UMC when I was working. And I have a friend who got actually his first intubation in the trauma room at UMC, and I was just like,
nice.
you rock.
Wow, yeah, that's he's got a
pretty
preternatural skill for it then, right?
Yeah, he was really good. I had an intubation with him. Kid, we flew out actually, and the nurse from the helicopter was like, we need to intubate this kid, and I said, can my partner do it? He's still kind of our patient, and I wasn't trying to get into a bitching match with her or anything, but she was cool. She was like, yeah, I'm just gonna stand by him, and we RSI'd him, which is rapid sequence intubation, which means, I know it's like spit it out, which means we give you drugs, knock you out, and then we put the tube down your throat. And so she did the RSI part because she had VEC and was able to put him down, and then my partner just did an amazing job, and it was one of those things. I love when different agencies and different levels of care and nurses and medics, who always
actually work together.
They kind of tend to butt heads. Work together.
Yeah.
To make a good outcome, because it's really all about the patient.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're talking with Preston, very, what I can ascertain so far, very bright young man coming up in the world. And we've been talking medical, your profession, for about the last 15 minutes. What else are you into? I mean, or do you just live and breathe medicine all the time? Do you have any hobbies?
Well, besides what I do for work, I'm pretty easygoing, to be honest.
He's full of shit. Tell everybody about martial arts.
Oh yeah.
I actually haven't been doing that.
Okay, but you
in
did.
The last, I did martial arts for about 11, 12 years. I did Kaju Kimbo, which
Explain what that is.
What is that?
It's a mixed martial art. It's karate, jiu-jitsu, Kimbo, and boxing.
Kind of sounds like a Wing Chun kind of philosophy to it, almost.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. I know things.
It was fun. I got my second degree black belt in that, and then I was trying to compete for a while, and I actually blew out both my ACLs and had them repaired. Yeah. So it's rough on my knees.
Wow.
I'm an old man.
Well, I don't know.
But what I always say, sometimes it's not about the age, it's about the mileage.
That's very true.
Yeah.
I mean, a rental car could be new, but man, has it been it's worked over.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been raw dogged.
NSFW, School of Hard Thoughts. We're here with Ace and Preston. My name's Green. So you did some mixed martial arts. You seem like kind of a funny guy, too. Have you ever used... you seem like you got some personality. Have you ever thought about using some of that to your benefit? Like, are you afraid of speaking in public, or...?
No, I mean, I've done stand-up a few times at Laughs and some places down Fourth. Just open mic nights, nothing big. But I haven't done that in a while, and the last time I did it, it was bad because I was supposed to go on at Mr. Head's, and I actually got too drunk before I went up there. So I went up there, and I completely forgot everything. I walked up there, I'm like, so, and I got booed off stage.
So you have to have bad shows. I used to perform in rock and roll bands, and I kind of did some comedy with it as well, but you have to have those bad shows, okay? You can't let it discourage you. If it's something you love, you need to keep with it. So what was your set like? Did you have like a kind of, okay, I'm going to start off with this is my opener, I'm going to go here, or was it more kind of like riffing off the cuff?
Well, I mean, I probably could do something on the fly, but I think I would probably fuck it up, to be honest. So I had, all these jokes in my head because I think it's lame when you see people that go up there with a piece of paper and they're like reading off their paper, and you'd be surprised at how many people do that.
Oh, no, you're right, yes.
So, I try to just memorize it all, and I go up there and I'm able to make it sound natural. I'm not like, so what about that airline food, huh?
Yeah, and that's one of the things about that art form that people don't realize. Comedians are writers.
Yeah, exactly.
You think comedian, he's just a funny guy, man. Big funny fat guy, or big, little funny skinny guy. He's got crazy red hair, and he, destroys watermelons or whatever. No, they're actually writers and artists, and they put a lot of hard work into it. Are you all right there?
No, I was just thinking, like, if you're a prop comic out there, don't. We love you. That is
like Carrot Top
or Gallagher, if you're old enough to remember.
Gallagher smashes the fruit.
Yeah. It is a very interesting line of work. You do have to be quick, but you do have to be organized at the same time because, like you said, you can't just get up there and be like, hey, what's up? I'm funny.
Exactly.
So we brought you on because, you're one of my friends, and I haven't seen you in a long time. So
yeah, man, it's been a minute.
For everybody who's out there, it's like, oh, they're just using us to catch up. But, like, I think you have a lot to say. So it was a very sensitive topic, and you were just like, yeah, let's talk about it. You have MS.
Yes. I'm 28 now. I was diagnosed when I was 23. So yeah, 5 years now. That's usually pretty young for most people. Most people get diagnosed in their 50s, 60s later on. It started when I was at work. My vision started crossing, and I started walking weird.
Right.
And they took my blood pressure, and systolically I was at like 160. It was, it was bad. So I didn't know what that was about, and then I went to my primary doctor, then he referred me to my neurologist, did a spine tap, and then also did a CT x-ray, and they came back, and at the time I didn't really know what it was. They're like, yeah, you have multiple sclerosis. So I was like, oh shit. Okay, well, some people usually can get depressed when they get that news. I was just like, all right, well, what do I gotta do?
Yeah, right.
They're like, we're gonna.
What's the next thing? Yeah.
Exactly, and they've had to moved me on 3 different medications now, because I was on interferon at first, which is a drug that's normally prescribed for people with hepatitis. It just stops basically your cells it stuns them, so it stops them from attacking the nerves in your brain. That was horrible. And I don't mean horrible, I mean fucking horrible, because I would have to shoot myself in the leg with a needle once a week. And it gives you flu-like symptoms, but after about, I think it was a year, I went back to my neurologist and they had to do another MRI of my brain, and it had actually done more damage because the scarring on my brain actually had progressed. So then they put me on a different drug, which thankfully this time was a pill. It's called Tecfidera, and I was on that for a few years, and it didn't hurt me, but it didn't really help it much. Right. I mean, I was getting all the symptoms all the time. I mean, vision crossing, I can't stand heat at all, and it's ironic that we live in Tucson.
Right.
But I overheat a lot.
Yeah.
Normally my gait is not affected. I can usually walk fine, but I mean, over the years, it's progressively added up. Nowadays, I mean, I don't really have issues with temperature because I'm on a new drug now called Ocrevus, which is an IV infusion you get every 6 months.
Oh, wow.
And I just started that in June, so my next dose is in December, I think it is. But, I mean, at this point, I can tell the effects 5 years later. I mean, I have neuropathy in part of my right hand. I can move it, but I can't feel it.
I know what it is.
Neuropathy is when you basically can't feel anything with it. The feeling is gone. Like I said, I have movement, but like if I touch with my ring finger and my pinky finger, I can't feel it. I can't feel anything there. So
is that one of the reasons that you don't do martial arts anymore, or do you think that martial arts might actually help you?
Well, the thing about that is me quitting martial arts was more so...
Your sensei was an asshole. Just say it.
Yeah, he was a douche. No.
Hi, Paul.
It was more... What's up, man? It was
Thanks
more...
for listening.
He doesn't listen. He's
I
great.
know.
Yeah. I love Paul.
Obviously.
What was I going to say?
We're talking about the
There's part of it. Slight memory loss sometimes. But yeah.
Weed also does that.
Yeah, dude.
And being 51.
But, yeah, so I quit martial arts mainly because just I was so busy all the time with school and all
right,
that.
Yeah. School kills you.
It does, but I still go to the gym.
Right.
But I just...
Yeah, you've always been fit. I used to hate you for it. But.
Well, I've gotten a little bit fat as I've gotten older.
Hey, that means you're getting happy.
Yeah, fat is happy.
that's absolutely
That is true.
So multiple sclerosis is present in either side of my family, and I know that if you're diagnosed younger, it might. See, you have the exact right attitude you're supposed to have, and I think that happens because you were younger. You have just this natural optimism about the future because you are young. I think that actually helps with the dealing and the progression of multiple sclerosis. I have an aunt that dealt with it for years, and then she got on the right combo of drugs, and all of a sudden it pretty much clears up. She has flare-ups every now and then, but it took her till she was like 45 before the right combos and the right circumstances, the environmental, whatever the curious little caveats are for it, all linked up. And now she's more or less doing well. She's a little bit blind in one of her eyes, but nothing like what, she was bound to a chair for a couple months and shit like that. So, I think if you're going to get diagnosed with that, younger is better, and you've handled it with aplomb. I mean, you got to stay positive in your brain because half of the healing is your attitude.
Yeah, it's attitude and staying proactive. It's very, very important. And I mean, as medicine continues to progress, they'll come up with something better. But
right.
You just got to work with what we have now. I mean,
so what is the outlook on the research?
It's hard to say necessarily. I know that for certain meds, it's looking very positive. Like I was saying, Ocrevus, the drug I'm on now, it uses a different mechanism per se. It attacks B cells, or works with B cells, mediation of them, compared to what all the other drugs used to do, which was always T cell mediation.
Right.
So this drug working that way, they've found that they have way more success in remission towards multiple sclerosis patients, and it's had a pretty high success rate with people that are on it.
Right. So you're looking, I would imagine that ultimately you're looking at for a world where, for example, they haven't cured AIDS, but they damn sure pretty much have said, yeah, you'll live a regular life. Pretty much.
It's manageable.
Exactly.
Yes. It's manageable. We've got the right drugs. We've got the right treatments. You know.
I mean, it's very important, medicine-wise, and also it kills me, these fucking anti-vaxxers.
They're literally killing me.
They have no background in medicine, in chemistry, nothing, and they keep endorsing not getting your kids vaccinated.
Well, they're listening to Jenny McCarthy.
And it's true.
But you're talking about a bigger issue when you start talking about that. Sorry for interjecting, but
no, you're good.
You're talking about the same. Hey, baby. You're talking about the same types of people that base their entire life off of reaction and reactionary kind of things, other than sound data sets. Flat earthers, and I'm not. You say Republicans. I actually.
I agree with the Republicans.
Well, listen,
as far
man.
As what
I got some Republican in me, but I'm sure as hell not a 45 supporter.
Where do you have it in you?
Okay.
Right up the butt. But I don't tell anybody about it, and I admonish anybody that likes it. But I think that this is stemming from. There's an Isaac Asimov quote on that about how the ignorance is outdoing the smart, and we're so dependent on technology, but we don't know how it works.
Now you're gonna make me look up that quote.
Yeah, right now. Oh wait, but you're talking about the same kind of modality of life for what I'm very surprised how many people are anti-vax, are flat earthers, are just
me too.
Right across the line, like 45 can do no wrong. I think it's this.
It's a mindset.
I honestly think, Preston, that it's akin to borderline personality disorder.
I absolutely agree with you. It's just sad if you have the facts right in front of their face. They won't acknowledge them. I mean, like, why do you think we don't see polio anymore? It's eradicated basically from vaccinations. It's fact. Look at the numbers, and people.
And another thing that it comes down to is I see it a lot with the flu vaccine is spurious correlations. So a spurious correlation is two things happen at the same time, and you automatically say, "Oh, well, this caused that." So you get people who are not allergic to eggs. If you're allergic to eggs, first of all, there's good news. But let me tell you what the bad news used to be. The bad news used to be if you were allergic to eggs, you couldn't have the flu vaccine. The good news is they're making one now that you can take that doesn't have any egg product.
Egg whites only.
Yeah, it doesn't have, Jesus Christ, the fucking chef. But yeah, but what happens to people is they say, oh, well, it always makes me sick. Well, and here's the thing. There is a small percentage that it might give you some cold-like symptoms, but the truth is you didn't get sick from the flu vaccine. You got sick because when do we get the flu vaccine? When the norovirus is out there, when colds are out there, when the flu is out there. So guess what, buddy? You were going to get sick whether you got the flu vaccine or not, and I guarantee you got the flu vaccine and you didn't get the fucking flu that year, and if you did, it wasn't that bad.
And people don't understand the actual physiology of how it works. They don't understand passive immunity, so on and so forth. They just don't get it, because you can explain the mechanism of how the actual flu shot, so on and so forth, works, but they're always like, no, it got me sick. I got sick from
they
that.
Swear they got sick, and it's like, no, And I'm not even...
It's the
like,
Dana Carvey church lady.
Yeah, well, there's like a 50-50 part of me, but it's still both against you idiots. It's like 50% of me is like, you didn't get sick, you're just an asshole. And the other 50% is like, yeah, you probably did get sick. You probably got a cold, which you were going to get anyway because you got like 6 kids and they're running around and you're not washing your faces.
You're at Starbucks and you lick
your hands.
You spilled latte on your steering wheel and you licked it off your steering wheel.
A lot of people, they get the sniffles and they're like, oh, I just caught the flu.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, so I've been in healthcare.
I hope everybody sounds like that in your reality, by the way.
Oh, trust me, usually they do.
Everybody in my reality sounds like Stewie. Stewie Griffin.
School hard thoughts.
So, but what? I lost my train of thought because I'm old.
Yeah, what's your excuse? I imbibe marijuana, and this young man is Preston. He's been so nice to be on our show today.
Yeah,
we've been talking about a lot of fun stuff. You brought up that Isaac Asimov quote.
Yeah, so there's a cult of quote, there's a cult of ignorance in the United States, and there always has been. The strain of anti-intellectualism has been a constant thread winding its way through our political and cultural life, nurtured by the false notion that democracy means that my ignorance is just as good as your knowledge. So it's like... What he's saying the same thing as, like, you know, alternative facts. You know, they come up with alternative facts, or they say, you know, the truth is, your opinion, like, facts don't care about your opinion.
By the way,
Isaac care about your opinion.
Yeah, Isaac Asimov is not some newfound flash in the pan modern socialist.
No.
This guy was an author of sci-fi stuff that still is far ahead of its time.
Some
back in
of my
the
favorite
40s.
books are by him.
Back in the 1940s, this guy was still ahead of his time. So there is something to be said for that quote.
He predicted a lot of predictions. A lot of people talk about David Brin predicting things. Well, Isaac Asimov predicted the cell phone. He predicted...
If you've seen Blade Runner, if you've seen Terminator, he was fundamental in the theories of AI. Like, AI is essentially based off of Asimov's presupposing.
Prescience.
Yeah.
Prescience.
Thank you. School of Hard Thoughts.
In college.
Yeah, I just work for a living.
Yeah, like I don't.
Preston, what?
I don't work for them.
What else? What's on your plate? What do you hope for the future? Are you going to get into politics? Are you going to keep pursuing the medical field? Where do you see yourself in let's say 5 years, man?
I'm hoping at that time I'm a PA, a physician's assistant. That's my goal, but political wise,
yeah.
I'm usually very active in that, especially because I think we're in a shitstorm right now. By the way, people, get out and vote. It's very important, very, very important to get out and vote. I don't want to throw bias on you, but hopefully we make it all blue. I'm hoping.
Oh, well,
yeah,
damn. I don't want to be biased.
But I don't want to be biased, and everybody knows that I'm going to be biased. But the truth is, if you vote, I don't care if you vote red, you vote blue, you vote for...
It's just important to vote.
Yeah, it's important that you get out and vote. We're like supposedly the greatest country in the world, and yet we have like one of the lowest participation rates in our
sad.
voting.
It's sad.
Yeah.
Well,
but there's a caveat to that. There are some nation states that have like 100% voting, but it's like there's only one guy on the ballot, and it's the dictator. So that kind of skews the data a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I always love it when it's like, we got low unemployment rates. Well, so does North Korea. Okay, so
it's fake news. Okay, it's fake news.
Let's
just kidding.
Let's pick and choose our Bible verses. Why don't we? Jeez.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I want to kind of go back to MS. We also have a mutual friend, and here's the thing about it. We've talked about the science and the medical part of it, but like Green said, you're handling this amazingly. But there have to be moments that you're like, fuck this fucking sucks. You feel sorry for yourself. What is your support system?
Honestly, I don't have much of one. I would say my biggest support system is probably my mom.
Okay.
Because she's always there whenever I need something. But
we have a mutual friend, Kimberly Candre, who kind of reached out to you. So, was she able to help you at all?
Well, I haven't actually talked to her in a long while, but when I initially was diagnosed, she taught me a lot about it and about how it's been for her. Because I'm not really an emotional person.
Right.
So when I was told the news, I was just like, okay, all right.
It's probably why you're so good in the medical field. You kind of have to disassociate.
Yeah, basically. And I usually handle pressure well. I can handle stress just fine. It's never been an issue for me.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, you've been choked out before, so it's like I've never been choked out. Like that scares the shit out of me. One of the main reasons I don't get into martial arts is like, at some point somebody's going to choke me out.
Day's still young, Adrian. Day's still young. We got a whole other podcast coming up, so you don't. Anyhow, you say you don't have much of a support system. So what's the most difficult part about dealing with this? Is it the fact that it's always on the back of your brain, or is it the actual physical manifestations of the ailment?
The actual physical manifestations of it are really not too bad for me. I would say just how it has affected the rest of my life. Like I was telling Adrian earlier about my job situation because of MS, and my former employer looked past that, didn't care. I would say it's stuff like that affects me the most when it comes to the disease.
Sure.
So, other than that, I mean, I'm just trying to stay proactive and
it looks like you're winning.
Yeah,
honestly.
Thanks.
One of the things that I have become discouraged with, because I'm studying the law, but is that the things that the powerful, the corporations, can get away with. Even though we have laws in place, we have FMLA, we have the Americans with Disabilities Act, that still only protects you to a certain extent.
Exactly, and especially since Arizona is a right-to-work state.
I was going to say
that's what
individual
makes it so hard.
Right,
states' rights.
And it's like, well, it always comes down to where the employer's like, well, we have to protect ourselves. So, like, we're choosing, by the way we write our laws and by the way we treat our citizens, we're choosing to say that the rights of a corporation or an entity, their bottom line, their profit margin is far more important than whether or not somebody who has a chronic debilitating disease, can take some extra time off.
Yeah, and you said exactly how it is with a lot of businesses, corporations, so on and so forth. It comes down to profit margins. That's usually what is going to dictate their decisions towards how they are with their employees, so on and so forth. So it ultimately comes down to money. It always does. It's unfortunate, but it's how it is.
So as a young man in the medical field, are you for or against single-payer healthcare? Do you think universal healthcare, socialized medicine, would fix some of that?
Yes, I am for universal healthcare.
See, most medical professionals I talk to are actually for that.
Yeah, and the amazing thing that we may actually benefit from is the Koch brothers did a study.
Oh, wow.
They didn't do a study, obviously, because they're two old rich guys. But they probably know no science.
Rich doesn't even begin to explain how much money they have.
Filthy rich. But they commissioned a study in order to debunk the efficacy of single payer, and the study actually proved that single payer would be more beneficial.
But they stood behind the data.
Really?
And that's what blew me away. I was like, this is the Koch brothers. They were like, we commissioned the study, and the study says single payer is probably a good idea, so we support it.
Listen, 18-year-old Green, if you're time traveling in the future, you're going to be rooting for the FBI, and you're going to agree with the Koch brothers. Just calm down.
But just on one issue.
Yeah, but still, far more than I ever thought would happen. Where do you think medicine is going right now? Do you think it is getting better? Do you think it's getting worse?
Well, I mean, it's really hard to say, especially since I think that Obamacare was a good step in the right direction.
I actually, let me stop you right there. It's what is it? The Affordable
Care Act.
Affordable Care Act,
Yeah.
because it's called Obamacare because he happened to be
in office
when that happened.
Passed, yep.
Yeah, well,
They never called it Romney Care,
Right.
which is what it's based on.
Exactly. It's actually based on, Mr. Mitt.
Yep.
You know, and Obama didn't kill Osama bin Laden. I mean, he happened to be in office when it happened. So, but yeah, the Affordable Care Act was a step in the right direction, you're saying, right?
I believe it was
A step.
A step in the right direction. Now it's hard to say where medicine's going because it seems like Trump is on a mission to just destroy everything Obama has put in place.
It just seems vindictive.
It seems very vindictive. So where medicine is going, it's really hard to say. I can make predictions, but they're probably going to be wrong.
Right.
But it's just hard to say.
But one of the good things about medicine is that regardless of who's in charge or who's the president or who's in Congress, is that one of the things I love about our field is that we do research. We do research
Yes.
continuously. So, in other fields, like, you get a certification in something and you get to keep it forever, and then, maybe every 5 years you have to pay an entity some money, but then you get to keep it.
Yep.
But in medicine, it's like your CPR, your advanced cardiac life support,
ACLS,
your
pediatric advanced
all
life
that
support.
stuff. Every 2 years, not only do you have to take it, but every 2 years, it's not even like, oh, we're just telling you the same stuff again, kind of pencil whip the test. No, it's new information. They're like, you know what? We were doing that wrong. And that it doesn't come from, just a whim or small studies. It
Group
comes
prayer.
from vast amounts of, double-blind, placebo-driven,
Exactly.
or actual
Scientific method.
patient gathering of patient data where people lived, people died, and it was based on certain things happening. And so I think that the future is always going to be bright in medicine. I think access to medicine is where we're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
And that's why I support single payer, and that's why I think Obamacare in its final form was something that I supported because it was better than what we had.
Yeah.
But I think it was woefully inadequate. There was no public option.
It's very limited in
Yeah.
its abilities per se.
And you can speak to this too. This is something that we've spoke about on just about every podcast, and I tell Green that how we pay for healthcare is the least of our worries, but it's the problem we have to solve first.
Yeah, I
because
agree.
there are so many other problems in healthcare with people who aren't trained properly, people who are trained properly but they're not motivated to go into the line of work where you'll have shortages of primary care doctors for a while, and then after that you'll have shortages of oncologists for a while, and it just goes kind of in kind of in cycles. And then there's the in-hospital infection problem, which they just can't seem to solve. It's like, no matter how many times they change the rules and how many times they observe sterile technique, people get infections from catheters and central lines. And you gotta wonder where that's coming from, because there's a high mortality rate with that. So there are some structural and actual medical problems that we need to solve that we cannot solve until we figure out how to pay for it.
I agree with that 100%. It's there's so many issues with it. It's hard to say all of them. Like, for example, hospitals are always evaluated for their readmission rate, because if a patient gets readmitted after a certain amount of time, the hospital will not get reimbursed for certain stuff that they provide. So it's stuff like that. It's all around the board. It's hard to say exactly, but yes, I think the whole concept as a whole needs to be addressed first, I would say. There's just been way too many issues with it.
Sounds like both of you are talking about the same thing. There needs to be a reevaluation.
Yeah, absolutely.
From the ground up. And Adrian, you're talking about starting from the pay, and you guys have both observed continual infections in hospitals. Now educate me, because I am not in the medical field. I've seen every episode of Scrubs like 14 times.
I love that show.
Who doesn't? But is the longer you stay in a hospital, if you're a patient, doesn't that increase
Oh, absolutely.
Your likelihood
absolutely.
of getting sick again?
One of my least favorite things to see is people visiting patients. And it's even worse when they're visiting patients who are not dying. They're in for like a gallbladder or something like that, and they bring children in.
Yeah, because then not only the kids could get sick, but also they become a vector for transferring.
Yeah, they're Trojan horses.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And that's something you see every day. I'll see kids crawling on the floor in the hospital.
Oh my God.
Right, and kids are
I'll be
always...
like,
they're always in pools of other kids.
Yeah.
So, like, you take your kid to the hospital and he's crawling on the floor and he gets MRSA or whatever. And then, you go to work the next day and you drop the kid off at the daycare, or maybe the kid's older and you take him to school, and then they've got a soccer group and they've got a piano group or whatever. But kids always tend to be in groups.
Yep.
And what do? They don't wash their hands. They pick their nose. They sneeze without covering it up.
They eat their snacks. They pull each other's hair.
Yeah, they give each other these diseases that they give to their parents, and then it just kind of snowballs.
And they're on the ground normally somewhere where I'm like, somebody actually just shit there the other day, and your kid's rolling around on that surface.
That too, but there's also, the closer to the ground you are, especially in the American Southwest and arid climates, you have a sporadic. Like literally from spores, it's valley fever. That's
valley fever is horrible.
Well, and
my mother had valley fever.
I think a lot.
We thought we were gonna lose her. I was like,
I think a lot of symptoms that present as flu or other ailments are actually undiagnosed valley fever.
It could be.
Honestly,
but the thing about valley fever that people don't understand is there's a simple test for it.
Yeah, but if you don't know what to test for, right. If you think...
but here's the thing.
Because it can manifest in a variety of symptoms.
Thing, because as healthcare providers, we tend to rag on our patients. We're nice to them in person and we're compassionate. But the truth is...
As soon as they're out the door, this bitch.
Yeah, right. But the truth is... The reality is, it's our responsibility.
Yeah.
So if you're going to a doctor and you're having respiratory problems and they can't figure it out and they don't test for valley fever, you need a new doctor.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. And I agree. I think both on the amateur and professional level, there needs to be more accountability, and there just needs to be a better understanding of basic science, of basic health.
I agree.
Because, like you're saying, you're bringing these otherwise very healthy people to visit a sick person in a temple full of sick people.
So, like, if anything ever gets across from this podcast to people, it's if someone is dying, I get it.
Go to your grandpa's last rites.
Yeah, please be at the bedside for your grandfather or your whatever. But if you have a family member that goes in and they're actually in the fast track area with a broken wrist, and you bring like a carload of the entire family with 7 kids, you're wrong.
You just infected 5,000 people in Pima County alone.
I understand in some cultures that's what you're supposed to do, and I understand that you want to show concern. give them a ride home from the hospital.
Show them
But other
concern
than
when
that,
they get
leave
home.
them the fuck alone. Stay out of
Make them a meal.
hospitals,
Take them out to a really nice restaurant.
Yeah, hospitals are just petri dishes of disease, and you're just gonna get sick.
It's where sick
I
and broken
agree.
people go to get better.
Right.
Yep.
And you look at an ER waiting room, and you're just like, that is the worst place to be
Yep.
in the world.
Yep.
It's
God,
I think I'd
you're
rather be in
absolutely
Haiti than an ER waiting room.
Haiti is an ER waiting room right now. Okay, Preston. I'm looking at our producer over there. We're almost out of time. You guys can't see him? Harvey, how you doing? You're on a podcast. We're going to be listened to by several million people, I can only assume. What is something that, if you have your microphone, you have your bullhorn right now, what do you want to say to people right now? What's on your mind? Is it politics? Is it medicine? Go for it.
I think it's a mix of all things. The most important thing, and I said this earlier, go out and vote.
Yeah.
I can't stress that enough. I know a lot of people that voted early. Kudos
I
to
did.
them. Yeah, I did as well. It's just important, period, to vote. Like I said, I don't want to spew bias on anyone. If you're Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. Go out and vote. It's very important.
Do you find yourself getting along more with one side or the other?
I am generally a registered independent,
Okay,
but I have friends on both sides.
sure.
I'm not going to base a friendship off that.
Good for you.
But if somebody is
I do.
very...
I know you don't.
If somebody is very hateful, or they can't speak constructively, or have backing for their reason, so on and so forth, then it's basically like, well, fuck you then. But no, I don't usually ever let my politics
I think it's
dictate my friendships.
I think you're a very important guest to School of Hard Thoughts, because the prevailing notion is that the early 30 and younger demographic is so reactionary, is so mother's basement, does nothing but play video games and complain online. Where it's actually, I think you've represented your generation quite well, and I think that because of this conversation, it might get people to think, maybe, well, who are the ones writing all these articles about the millennials? The millennials
Thank
are out there
you.
trying to pay for their
I'll
college.
tell you who it is. It's Gen X. We're assholes.
You got-
Yeah.
Yeah, we're horrible. We're horrible, but this is something that we talked about it before, so I won't belabor the point. But every generation, older generation, kind of shits on the generation after it.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, you get hooks and titles and memes and stuff like that. But the bottom line is, when you group people together, which is probably a bad idea anyway, but when you group people, now when people group themselves together, that's culture, right?
Yeah.
But when you group people together demographically, you say, these people are millennials, these fucking millennials.
It builds a stereotype
Right.
of what we are, which, yes, I am technically a millennial, but I'm not one of these crazy, jobless.
First of all, there's
seeking out
nothing
handouts
technical
type
about
people.
it. You are a millennial,
Yeah.
but the thing is I don't, just like the term hipster, I don't think it should be a pejorative term.
Yes, you should.
Shut up. I was there in Olympia, Washington, in 2002, drinking PBR, not because it was cool, because I was poor
did you have
and
a top knot?
I was sad.
Did you have a top knot?
Oh, hell no. I
Were
was-
you Toshiro Mifune?
I was getting into Buddhism. I was shaving my head before.
Because if you're not Toshiro
I was sha-
Mifune, I'm going to tell you right now. If you're not Toshiro Mifune, the top knot, the ponytail, you're a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
Did you wear a monocle?
Google Akira Kurosawa. No, but I definitely want a monocle and mustache wax.
Don't.
This is the
don't
most hipster
Google
thing ever
Akira
right here.
Kurosawa.
Oh,
If you don't
shit.
know who Toshiro Mifune is, fuck you.
Okay. Gen X and we got
Anyway,
Gen X and
what I was saying was, like, when you put a whole group of people into a box,
Yeah.
guess what? You're going to have some people who are serial killers. You're going to have some people who are very responsible. I'm pretty sure, age-wise, the guy that killed Bin Laden was a millennial.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure that there are vapid people out there, and all they do is watch Jersey Shore and Kim Kardashian, and that's fine. But you can't say that that's the entire group.
Yeah.
No.
And then I will say it right now. The generation behind you, the Parkland generation. I'm just.
Is that what their
no,
generation's
I
called?
think
He's coining
they're
something.
why I'm kind of coining
That's
it.
what I was thinking.
But the Parkland shooting kids, they are going to save us.
Absolutely.
They are going to save us because they're smart, they're driven, they're passionate, and they're not quitting. That's something that all people do, but especially when you're young, you're just like, yeah, I'm gung-ho for this, and then like 2 years later, you're like, yeah, I'm not doing it anymore.
Or, well, look what happened to the baby boomers. You're talking about a cultural revolution of art and music and craziness, and then, I'm sorry, and there are exceptions to the rule, but they essentially got old and scared.
Yeah, and spent all the money.
They spent all the money because they didn't really have circumstances like their parents had with the Depression, with the Dust Bowl, World War II and/or One. So, I mean, Vietnam was not a walk in the park, but it was not a total globe-fucking event.
Yeah, I think Vietnam taught us a lesson, and it taught us a lesson that we'll get into on another cast the whole ramifications of it. But it taught us to respect our troops.
Absolutely.
But there's, and this is what we'll talk about on another cast, is that there's also this cult of respect our troops because it makes me a patriot.
No.
And it's like,
I hate that mindset.
I mean, there's this whole world. I mean, you if you watch television at all, and I don't like to watch commercials, but every once in a while you'll catch a commercial. They have commercials for sunglasses, and they're like, "Yeah, these are tactical sunglasses," and everybody wants to be a Navy SEAL or an operator, and it's like everybody's wearing
on your John Deere riding lawnmower
flag patches on their shirts and shit, and they're thinking that makes them a patriot. And it's like
nobody
Chris
needs.
Kyle was
I know
a hero.
my
Well,
tactical
you know what?
sunglasses do.
Yeah. Oh, you look good.
Those are awesome.
Yeah, they're tactical.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can feel the tactics.
That's a whole other podcast
Yeah.
we'll talk about. But yeah, the Vietnam War definitely taught us that.
I have nothing but respect for the troops, and we are going to get on that on the next podcast. Maybe a little bit later today we might record another one. But Preston, we've kept you for about an hour. And that's about our time here on School of Hard Thoughts.
I wanted to go through one more thing. So we've talked about the research. We talked about you personally. I'm asking this as a friend. Mm-hmm. If nothing changed from here for the rest of your life, if they came out with no more drugs, no new treatments, nothing new, what's your prognosis?
It's hard to say. A lot of times it can just have its course and it'll, do what it does. Other times it's also lifestyle induced.
Right.
So,
What do you mean?
just-
What do you mean by lifestyle induced?
for example, like drinking and smoking are awful for it. I usually tend to drink a lot.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're 28. That's